Hey, should the Ocarina of Time remake include 900 Korok seeds? Say it with me, no! Anyways, today we'll be exploring what this remake should and shouldn't include from its successors. If Majora's Mask isn't known for its dark story and aesthetic, then it's definitely known for its fantastic side quests. The game is practically built around these, with every character having their own personal life. We all know about the Anjun Cafe side quest or the Aliens side quest at the ranch. I think you know where I'm going with this. To me, this is one of the best mechanics they could bring over. Would it have to be toned back? Absolutely! But wouldn't it be great to have more meaningful side quests in a game with an already fantastic main quest and world building? It would add so much to the population of the game. We already saw an attempt to do a more complicated side quest with the big Goron sword, so why not more? This might be small, but what I wouldn't want is the save system to only work at statues, and that includes respawns. We should keep the ability to save anywhere. The removal of the limited respawn areas is just a small thing I want them to add. Now, why would this be bad? Well, unlike Majora's Mask, the game doesn't expect you to do so much in a single play session, whereas Majora's Mask really pushes you to do a full 3-day cycle through its sessions, shown by the fact that the game does not want you to save mid-dungeon. Moving on to the Wind Waker. This one was more complicated, but there is a small mechanic that I think would be really fun. See, at the beginning of Wind Waker, you go through Forsaken Fortress, where you have to be stealthy around the moblins and spotlights. Ocarina of Time also has a stealth section to get to Zelda for the first time. My idea is to bring the expanded stealth mechanics of Wind Waker into Ocarina of Time to make it more interesting break into the castle, as we all know by now how easy it is in the original game. The Wind Waker lets you walk around in crates and stop spotlights to get around, and I'm sure that if something like that were implemented into Ocarina of Time, even to a lesser extent, it would make that part of the game so much more interesting, and not even that much harder. Now, what I wouldn't want is the mapping system of that game. Wind Waker is the only Zelda game that requires that much to complete the map, excluding Zelda 1 and 2 where you have to map it out yourself if you didn't have the guide. The simple act of having to map out all 49 quadrants separately by feeding the fish is just stupid to me, and I never found this fun. The Ocarina of Time remake absolutely must not bring this back. Luckily for me, it is very unlikely this will happen. So, for this game, I already talked a bit in my Ocarina of Time Hopes video that I wanted a combat system akin to Twilight Princess. Why I chose the combat of this game specifically has to do more with how the game teaches you the more complex mechanics. Yes, the fact of learning new techniques all throughout the game keeps the combat fresh and means that the game will never overload you with a ton of information at once. Ocarina of Time's combat works great, but it is fairly simple, and to be fair, it had to be. In 1998, people were still pretty unfamiliar with 3D games, so keeping things simple helped make the game more approachable by anyone still trying to get a grip on 3D movement. Today, however, it's much less of a problem, and if Twilight Princess got a more complex combat system, then so can this remake. What I don't want, though, is the amiibo unlocks of Twilight Princess HD. Locking Cave of Shadows behind an amiibo is stupid, just like locking the extra hard mode behind the Ganondorf amiibo. This should have been content accessible through normal gameplay. It's as if they'd locked the Light Temple behind an amiibo in the upcoming Ocarina of Time remake. It would be horrible. My idea for Skyward Sword is simple, but it might be a bit difficult to implement. What I would want is the greater emphasis on story this game has, with its fantastic cutscenes and character writing. Ocarina of Time's story is extremely interesting, but it could be 10 times better if the game put a bit more time into developing its characters and narrative. We still know so little about Zelda and Ganondorf, but we know even less of the events predating the game, like the Civil War that is mentioned. This game has so many opportunities to create an even more believable world. Skyward Sword is great at making you care about the people you are protecting, like Zelda and Groose, and it creates an excellently sad farewell at the end with Fi. Ocarina of Time already has a great world and characters that it could expand on to create an even more impactful ending. This next one is pretty obvious. I really dislike how disconnected Skyward Sword's world feels. This is probably the biggest criticism this game has apart from the motion controls. Obviously, Ocarina of Time's world feels extremely well connected, and I don't think they would take a step back just for the fun of it. Skyward Sword mainly had this problem because of the sky being, well, in the sky, above the actual world you want to visit while actively hiding the world below. This one was a pretty easy pick. I want the freedom of movement Breath of the Wild allows. What I mean by that is that Ocarina of Time's movement restricts a lot of ways to explore the world. You can only approach areas from very specific angles. Breath of the Wild obviously does not have this issue. This would obviously break a lot of the game, so it would have to be restricted to some extent, but you should be able to explore these big open areas the way you would like. Exploration would be so much more interesting and diverse. For what I don't want, I bet you all thought I was going to talk about Korok seeds, but no. What I don't want is shrines. I have good reasoning for this. A game like Ocarina of Time does not need shrines, because exploration in that game is meant to be a break from the puzzle solving of the dungeons, and shrines are literal puzzles to fail at exploration. It would go against one of the ways Ocarina of Time works. Shrines would be unnecessary padding, and we would feel it. And also, we already have grottos, which are simple, yet they add quite a bit of discoveries to this world. What I picked for this one might be weird, but it's the enemy parts drop. So basically, Tears of the Kingdom introduced more variety of monster horns for its fuse system. I think this would be great for an upgrading system for items, and it would also incentivize fighting more. I wouldn't want these drops to be too common, especially for enemies like Keese or Skulltulas that you kill over and over again, but I still think this would be an interesting mechanic inside of Ocarina of Time. Now, the one you've all been waiting for. Collectibles! I obviously don't want the absurd amount of collectibles from Tears of the Kingdom to return, and especially not with the reward of Hestu's poop. This was probably obvious from the fact that I didn't mention it for Breath of the Wild. Anyways, that's all from me today. Please tell me your own list in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to not miss new Zelda or Nintendo content. And have a great rest of your day.